Warm greetings to everyone who is here today for us to spend our time together meditating and hearing the teachings, exploring the teachings. And also those of you I want to greet who will be listening to this later. And I also want to welcome you to this time. And I think we're all together, whether it's in so many different places, but also in so many different times. The amazing way in which we can share this practice in this electronic age. One of the very significant, very effective ways of engaging in mindfulness practice, whether it's on the cushion or in daily life, is to develop the orientation, the dedication, the love for doing one thing at a time. And then when you're doing something, to, within reason, unless something, something dramatic happens, the building starts burning or something, within reason, stay with it and see it through to the end. To do one thing at a time and see it through to the end. So in meditation, that can be as simple as being present fully for the in-breath and seeing it through to the end, staying there, really having a sense, a kind of an attitude, a orientation, a dedication, a valuing, a savoring, a love of just seeing it through to the end, that in-breath. And then when the out-breath comes, just that, seeing that through the end, one thing at a time. And sometimes we do it, kind of renew it, every in-breath and every out-breath, and a different way of continuity develops, and the continuity of, okay, now I'm going to just stay with the in-breath and out-breath without leaving at all. That may be too big of a goal, but the goal of just seeing this one thing through to the end, this one thing through to the end. And if that's the primary activity here, then that's a wonderful place to be the place where you do one thing at a time. If you're doing the first tetrad, the being with the breath, knowing it, and then experiencing the whole body, and then relaxing the body, each of those steps, that's what we dedicate ourselves to. And perhaps again, it's kind of like the in-breath and out-breath. It's kind of temporary. We're just there for this relaxation, this moment of experiencing the full body, and then renewing it. This gentle renewing, loving renewing. We're renewing and starting with the next moment, the next activity, next, thing that we're going to see it to the end. Even if it's just one, even the same thing over and over again, can be a very effective way of building and developing, settling in to this mindfulness. So, to begin with doing one thing at a time, just give yourself over to your posture, to establishing a meditation posture with the details of posture kind of cared for, tended to. Feeling how the weight of the torso is centered on the sitting bones. Are you leaning forward, leaning backward, or do you have a sense that your weight is balanced on a kind of vertical center of gravity? maybe sitting up a little bit straighter. Breathing in, breathing out. Adjusting where the hands are and the arms, the elbows. Noticing if the elbows are a little bit locked in or tense. There's a way of just kind of flapping your elbows slightly, like you're chicken or something, just to kind of make sure it's loose in the arms. You can kind of also just kind of shake your, ever so slightly, shake your hands to see if they're loose. Making some care for how your head is on your, that somehow the meeting of the back of your neck and your skull doesn't feel scrunched, like you're lifting up, your chin and kind of opening the space there, the last vertebrae in the skull. Being careful that the chin is not pulled down or your head is not tipped down too much. So there's a kind of a pressure in the front of the neck underneath the jaw from being crunched a little bit. And if you don't have your eyes closed, to gently close them if that's comfortable. And then to do one thing at a time. Take one deeper in-breath as if that's the only thing that's important. And then one full exhale, just doing that all the way to the end. Breathing in, breathing out. On the exhale, relaxing the body. And letting the breathing return to normal. And again, on the exhale, take a few breaths to relax the body, the whole body, parts of the body. But to do the relaxation on the exhale as if it's the only thing happening. Giving yourself over to this one thing. Breathing on the exhale, relaxing on the exhale. And then settling into breathing. And seeing if there's some way, attitude of attention that maybe makes attention to the breathing enjoyable. Maybe a friendliness, a love, maybe a peacefulness or a tranquility. Whatever way that maybe it's enjoyable to really take in the breathing. On the in-breath, just the in-breath, that one thing all the way to the end. On the exhale, the one thing that you give yourself to, gently, receptively, all the way to the end. And then start over. And if something takes you away from your breathing, let the knowing of that thing be the one thing that you do. Just knowing, thinking, just knowing, feeling. Patiently, openly, and then begin again with the breathing. to help you do one thing at a time. While you're breathing, just the inhale, just the exhale. You can gently say the word one. Count up to one. On the inhale, then start over again, counting up to one on the exhale. Just long, gentle one. To really be there for this one thing. then as we come to the end of this sitting, to shift the focus of attention to the dedication of our efforts to benefit others. Through this practice, we benefit ourselves, and the more we benefit ourselves, the more we have to offer others. May we benefit ourselves so we can benefit others. May we benefit others so we can benefit ourselves. May this wonderful cycle, wheel of mutual care keep rolling in our world. And so as we come to the end, evoking the wish, the desire, the goodwill that wishes everyone well, wishes the best for everyone. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. And in so doing, may all beings be free of their suffering, their oppression, their poverty, their illness. May all beings have the opportunity to breathe easily and have their heart be at ease. So we're still staying with this third exercise that the Buddha taught in the discourse on the four foundations for awareness. And it is it's easy to overlook this exercise because the four foundations for awareness are often taught as meditation practices. And so people will kind of focus on the parts that have more directly to do with meditation. And here, it's not meditation that's being focused on, but rather activity. And so it's mindfulness in daily life, mindfulness in the activities we do. And it's worthwhile to take some time with this and to really begin to appreciate how this can be done in practice in our lives, because there's a mutual relationship between how we develop our attention in meditation and how we develop it in daily life. And they support each other. And they certainly support each other in that both places are places where it's getting stronger and expanding our capacity to be present. But it's also important because the two areas kind of highlight different aspects of life, different aspects of ourselves. If all we ever did was meditate, we go to a monastery and just meditated all the time, it might be wonderful, but it would just be a very partial experience of who we are. Not a few people have gone off on retreats and been able to meditate all day and feel, wow, this is great, and I'm so wonderful, and I'll never be challenged again because I'm so balanced and clear and peaceful. And then within a day of leaving, they're angry and upset and yelling at other drivers, or, you know, or they find themselves completely consumed with desires, and so they've certainly learned to settle themselves on retreat, but they haven't learned how to bring attention to what happens in daily life and how to be in daily life, so that mindfulness carries the day, not our reactivity. And so, in meditation, we get to look at part of who we are. In daily life, we get to look at other parts of who we are, and find a way to live wisely in both ways, in both situations. So, in terms of mindfulness in daily life, in activity, one of the great approaches is to do just one thing at a time. Whatever you're doing, just do that. And if and part of the advantage of kind of going on retreat or going and living in a Buddhist monastery is that the situation there tends to be set up. The ambience, the atmosphere, the dedication, what's happening around you, it supports more often than in daily life just doing one thing at a time. And when I was in the monastery, there was kind of understood, if you're sweeping the monastery grounds, just sweep. If you're washing dishes, just do the dishes. And it's represented by the story in Japan when I was in the monastery there, where I went into the kitchen in the evening for something, maybe a little snack or something. And there was one of the other monks was preparing the vegetables for the next day's meal, and he was chopping them away. And I stood opposite the table where he was chopping, and faced him and asked him some question. I have no memory of what I asked him. And but what I remember was that he put down his knife that he was chopping with, and he stood up straight and looked at me and answered me in a very matter-of-fact, nice way. And then he picked up his knife and started chopping again. And that's why I asked the second question. He put down the knife, stood up straight, faced me, and answered the question in a nice way. So, not really understanding what was going on, I asked him a third question. And so he put down his knife again and faced me, and he said, "Gil-san," he said, "Gil, I'm here in the kitchen to just, to chop the vegetables this evening, and if you're going to talk to me, then I can't really do my work. Focus on it." And so then I bowed and apologized and left. He was just doing one thing at a time. When he was chopping, he was just chopping. When he was talking to me, he was just talking to me. And he was dedicated to that. So this was not really the ordinary time to have a conversation. So it was reasonable that he wanted to dedicate himself to his work. And it was the evening. He probably wanted to get ready to go to bed. And so that story kind of represents this kind of dedication to just doing one thing at a time. And of course, it can be overdone. And there are times, of course, when the one thing we do is a number of things. But then just do that. I think I told a story yesterday being a fast order cook. And I just did one thing. Not one thing, just one job and I was absorbed in just doing the job, just surrendering to everything that was needed. And I was tracking multiple things, but I was just cooking. And so exactly what one thing means varies from context to context. But the principle of just when you're doing something, just do that. And don't be involved in things which are extraneous to it. This one thing, this one practice, can enhance the experience of daily life so that it begins to approach the kind of wholeheartedness that monastic life has. Not that it's monastic life, it's just kind of you're getting some of the benefits, because a big part of monastic life is this ability to just really do one thing at a time. And then one of the ways of really getting into this is add to it the idea of seeing that one thing through to the end. So like if you're walking in your house from, I don't know, the living room to where the laundry is, to move the laundry from the washer to the dryer, and you're walking, that's the task. Just do that. And if you see that something needs to be cleaned up along the way, or something grabs your interest along the way, you see that there's something mail has arrived and you want to check the mail. If you're doing this one practice at a time, seeing it through to the end practice, since you set yourself on the course to go to the laundry room and move the laundry, just do that. And it might be a little bit less efficient than doing something along the way, but it's more efficient in terms of cultivating mindfulness. Just do that. And if it's important to do something else along the way, then of course, then switch and do that. But just kind of practice more and more, just seeing one thing through to the end. And then when you're finished, then go look at the mail and do that one thing. And at first, it might seem a little artificial, but as you get into it, you will find that that there's kind of an enhancement of awareness, of presence. It helps kind of evoke the various capacities we have when we're fully present for something. Just being there, it can be very relaxing. It can be very freeing of the preoccupations and the stresses of the day, because a lot of the stresses of the day don't have so much to do with don't have to do with what's happening in the moment, but have to do with our imagination, our projection into the future, or our fantasy, or anxieties that are, more have to do with the thought world than they have to do with what's happening right here and now. So to be able to just kind of just see this thing through to the end and develop that capacity can be very freeing in terms of what builds up stress in our minds. And then to learn to enjoy doing that, to learn how doing just one activity, how embodying that with awareness. So it's not a duty, it's not like a mental thing, like, okay, now I should just be here. It's a embodied, all body thing, just the body is there for itself. And this also represents in the moment for me the experience I had in the Japanese monastery, where sometimes it was my job to bring the food from the kitchen to the dining room and table where we would eat on the table, bring the food and sometimes I was given the rice to carry in the big pot of rice, and it was kind of big, but I could carry it with one hand, and so I would carry it with one hand. It seemed like a fine thing to do, and it was doing the job, and whenever I did that, some other monk would come along and say, "Gilson, when you carry the pot, carry it with both hands. Just really be there." And so in Zen also, if you're drinking tea, you wouldn't just drink it with one hand. You would actually be there fully to drink the tea, just the tea, seeing that tea just all the way with both hands. There's something about using both hands which contributes to this embodiment, this, like, let's be here for this thing. And then also with our posture, that there's a posture that maybe is relaxed enough, but the posture is not participating in what we're doing. So it's not just a matter of doing one thing with attention, but also how much of our whole being can we gently, lovingly bring along to do something, so that begins to be a feeling, a sense of being absorbed in something. And the more of ourselves we bring to the activity, actually the more pleasurable it tends to become, the more it tends to enhance our capacity for presence. And so, um, certainly I can, sometimes it's nice to be, the one thing we do is to relax at the end of a day, and then sitting in a nice, easy chair and maybe just reading something or having tea and just reading and having tea and drinking kind of mindlessly the tea because, you're doing that one relaxing thing. That's completely fine because this is what I'm doing. But there's qualitatively a very different thing if you say, okay, I'm really going to just, now I'm going to, really the one thing I'm going to do is drink tea. And you sit up a little bit straighter so your kind of spine is involved too. And then you pick up the cup with two hands and you really kind of meet it and really going to, this is what you're going to do with two hands, with your whole body. And there are times when that begins awakening a very different kind of mindful presence, awareness, embodied awareness, than the idea of that mindfulness is a mental activity of just knowing, knowing I'm lifting, knowing the cup, knowing a feeling, and that's sometimes part of what mindfulness is, but then it's a kind of a partial awareness. It's using just one faculty, but to bring our posture, our body into what we're doing and feeling it and sensing it is how the sense of absorption or pleasure in the activity can grow. And then in doing so, can over time you find that actually the result of doing it is that you have more clarity, more wisdom, more understanding, more ability to tune in to your environment and be in harmony with it or be wise with what you do. Enjoying one thing at a time is not hedonistic. It's it's it sets up the conditions for wisdom and for freedom and for clarity. So doing one thing at a time, one activity at a time, and then kind of seeing it through to the end. So within reason, of course. So thank you very much, and we'll continue a little bit more on this topic of mindfulness activities, because we'll see that some of the lessons we learn here are then relate to what we learn in meditation practice, and we learn to apply that there as well, and it supports the meditation. So, thank you very much.